Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Hey, everybody. It's been a while since I've done one of these. Welcome to Pod Mavericks Group Therapy. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here. It's Friday afternoon. It's a little after 3:30 on August the 4th. We are as close to the middle of the NBA dead zone off season as at any point during the year, because starting as recently or as soon as next week, we're going to have actual news stuff that we can talk about if we're so interested. With, for example, Dirk Nowitzki entering the Hall of Fame. There's going to be inching more towards the World Cup starting. Obviously, there's the friendlies going on right now, but we're just in an absolute dead zone for content, which isn't the worst thing in the world. I kind of like the break to a degree, but I also like talking a little shop with you guys. So while I'm meandering here in the beginning of this show, remember, this is our live show where if you want to participate, you go ahead and click the link, the pinned post there that's in the YouTube channel, and you can come hang out, come talk some basketball, ask me some questions. We can really talk about anything that anybody wants to at the moment. I mean, I'm sort of, I don't want to say I'm quite exactly at a loss. There's plenty of stuff that we could ramble about, particularly today. The Slovenian national team played Greece in the second of a kind of home and home with the Greece national team. Luka Doncic hurt his knee kind of on a collision. Vlatko Kankar also really got injured, which is just deeply disappointing. But it sort of goes to the whole notion of these guys are going to be playing basketball. That's one thing I think that gets lost in the discussion. So whether they're playing in basketball in front of thousands of people or on television or whatnot, they're still going to be playing, either in pickup or in practice or in situations like that. So, injuries just sort of come with it. I think it is a little bit frustrating as a Mavs fan to see Luka, and obviously a Slovenian countryman, to see your guy go down. Luka will probably be fine. As we all know, he's a bit of a tank, but injuries do take their toll. And, having going into a collision is just, it's not ideal. So we'll see the Slovenians. Let's see here. They play a number of more games. Like, I was actually talking about this with a friend. It's the United States, I think, plays like 3 total warm-up games. The Slovenian national team plays Montenegro on Tuesday, excuse me. Then they play Spain and then USA in back-to-back days on August 11th and 12th. They play Japan on the 19th, and then the World Cup group stage starts on the 25th. So like 21 days from now. It's just it's sort of interesting to see that volume of games for the Slovenian team. The squad this year least in these first two games, has not looked great. I sort of think they're missing, Mike Tobey. They're going to have to make some interesting choices because they can only carry over one naturalized citizen into those games. That'll be pretty interesting. On the World Cup as a whole, I'm really kind of looking forward to it because the Canadian national team is truly outstanding. If you go look at the roster that they're featuring, so that part's pretty fun. Excuse me, just had to cough there for a second. In terms of Mavs news, the only thing that's happened that's like kind of remotely interesting over the last few days outside of anything internationally is Texas A&M wing Dexter Dennis is signing an Exhibit 10 contract, which is kind of a training camp invite. That one didn't really have a lot of strong takes on it, but, always interesting to bring guys that you haven't heard of to training camp as opposed to retreads. Today, Frank Ntilikina signed a kind of non-guaranteed contract with the Charlotte Hornets, which I thought was particularly interesting. I kind of figured that he had played his last game on an NBA team. And let's see here. Yeah, he's in the chat. He isn't. Luka Doncic isn't injured. It's that he anytime the guy gets a bump or a bruise, the way we see him, I just don't know how to react anymore. Because the kind of physical style that Luka plays when he is and isn't able to play is hard for me to figure out, because I think he will probably always try to play at, pretty much regardless of as long as his legs and arms work. So that's sort of where we are at that moment. So, there's been some other, nicer things around the week. Josh, Bo, and I talked about it on Monday at Miles Turner's basketball camp. Rick Carlisle had a lot to say about Luka and obviously a lot to say about Dirk, which was pretty interesting and just nice to read kind of in the dead zone. Let's see here. There's, Luka looks physically fantastic. As Bernardo notes, he was playing amazing today. Luka also played fantastic the other day. He just looks, the tan is something that I don't know how to discuss without sounding weird. He's clearly been out in the sun, which good for him. I wish I could be out in the non-Texas sun and getting a little bit of that going. Physically, Luka looks as good as we've seen him. When he wears like the full length tights, which I don't know if the NBA really likes when players do that. He looks slender. There were some stories Tim Cato had mentioned earlier in the summer that Luka might have been asked by the Mavericks to consider, kind of his playing weight closer to 30 as opposed to 245, 250. I'm curious to see what sort of changes if he's interested in that angle. I've talked about this extensively, and this is probably just going to be my bit until the Mavericks play in the regular season. With Kyrie Irving on the roster and some of the other playmaking guards that the Mavericks have, I would like to see Luka use the way the Nets used James Harden before things went to hell up there, where Harden was a point guard, true kind of Magic Johnson-esque point guard in the first three quarters, and then in the fourth quarter he was their closer. Luka obviously opens the game really well. You go look at Luka's first quarter stats throughout the NBA year. His first quarter stats are better than a lot of guys' stats throughout the whole game. He's just that good. 32, 8, and 8 for an entire season is pretty something. But I would like to see him finishing games that way, really putting the team on his back and carrying them home then, as opposed to throughout the whole game. And I think you can do that with Kyrie Irving. I think it's interesting. With Slovenia, they play just due to the kind of talent disparity with Luka and everybody, compared to the rest of the team. He's going to end up having the ball a lot, but that's all right. In a 40-minute game, a lot more crazy stuff can happen. I think the shorter the game, the more likely an upset. Slovenia, I think, had like the fourth best odds for the World Cup the last time I checked, which is pretty good considering, the United States and Canada were up above them. They were ahead of teams like France and Spain and some of the other kind of longer standing international powers. So that element of kind of what we're seeing from the World Cup is pretty interesting. And remember, guys, there's not a ton of people in here. Again, dead of summer, perfectly fine. Don't blame anybody if they don't want to talk. But if you go ahead and click, the link that's in the pinned post here, you can come hang out on stage with me, and we can talk a little ball, anything that's kind of on the top of people's heads. I was reading the comments to our last podcast, and a number of folks were pretty passionate in their response to Josh's thoughts that the Mavericks don't necessarily need Clint Capella. I find it very interesting that I think everybody wants Derek Lively to play a lot. I think the concern is that he might not be able to play a lot just due to foul trouble, physical limitations, Jason Kidd holding him to a particular standard. And that's why they want, a lot of fans would like to see the Mavericks upgrade the center position with somebody like Capella. I just don't know. I don't have a firm enough take on it. Josh was kind of anti in the sense that he doesn't think it's a great use of resources. I guess I get that. I try to understand where he's coming from on that. I also understand if you really think that Capella could end up boosting this team. I suppose my question for anybody that is interested is, so we got a good one. I worry about Lively's weight. He's going to get bodied by the likes of Looney. Here's the thing, man. Lively is already bigger than Tyson Chandler was when Tyson was Maverick. Like, I saw them standing next to each other. Tyson always played incredibly thin, just relatively. Like, Lively's a big body. Like, he's a heavier dude, at least in very muscular. I was sort of expecting him to be thinner too, because again, it's a college player. He's 19. He's coming in. He's pretty well developed, which was something I was kind of surprised by. One thing I'm curious about, and please, guys, either answer me in the comments or come up here and talk with me a little bit about it. Do you think that getting a Clint Capella, let's just say the Mavericks are able to win a staring contest and able to move Clint Capella for, I don't know, Tim Hardaway and the second round pick, because they have a couple now that they got in the sign and trade for Grant Williams. Does that move the Mavericks from the 7, 8, 9 area, which is sort of where I feel like they are right now on paper, into the 4, 5, 6 discussion? Does Clint Capella do that for you? I honestly don't know. Bernardo says, I think it's good for seconds, but for a first, do not do it. That's where I am too. That first round pick, the 2027 first round pick, is the pick that they have to hold on to. The Dallas Mavericks owe their 2024 pick to the Knicks right now. That's the one. And if they don't, I think if it doesn't convert this year, then it becomes like 2 future seconds. Zachary says it makes the Mavericks a top 5 team, in my opinion. I'm genuinely fascinated by that. I don't have strong Capella opinions outside of the fact that I feel like getting him would be just classic Mavericks and getting a center like 3 years later than we possibly needed him. All right, we got my first guest. It's a slow day for me. Usually we got at least 3 or 4 people who want to talk. My buddy Josh here, different Josh, is in the chat. What's going on, guy?
Hey, I didn't want to leave you hanging, man. How's it going?
That's fine. I can talk to myself. You've seen me do it. But thanks for coming up. What's going on?
No, it's good. It's good. My wife just took our daughter with her to Kansas City for the weekend, so I've got a solo bachelor.
Do you have man meal planned, like the thing you can't eat while your wife is there?
I went to Costco literally an hour ago, and I bought a A5 Wagyu steak that I'm defrosting currently that I plan to sauce up tomorrow night. So.
That's a magnificent choice. I was also hoping for something like, I bought an entire rotisserie chicken to eat by myself. Yeah, man. So what are we thinking?
Yeah, no. So the Capella thing, I think he raises our floor. I don't know if he does anything for our ceiling. I think.
Okay.
I think he would fill a dire need. We don't have a starting caliber center, so I don't see how he wouldn't help the roster. But I don't think we go from an 8 seed to winning the West by adding Capella. I think it's more like we might win a playoff series, have a competitive second round, and that's kind of it. But I'd be down to trade him if the price is THJ and a couple of potato chips. Like, as long as I agree with you, don't touch the first, don't touch Josh Green, don't touch Hardy. Otherwise, I'd take him.
See, I'm wondering about the Green Hardy thing because I think at some point the Mavericks are going to have to make a little bit of a determination because I want to say it was Brian Damaris talking on Take That With You where they sort of thought like right now looking at the guard rotation, is Hardy the odd man out? And I just can't fathom that with how he ended the season. I mean, I've been pretty hard on Josh his entire career. There was a stretch of games after
Oh, I know.
it was the game where kids kind of like just cut his balls off and put who was it? Holiday in. And then like you look at Josh's box score, it's like 6 games in a row where he does nothing. And then he ended out the season pretty good. But he and Hardy both ended out the season pretty well. And I don't know how you would sit either of those guys. I
think they should be tethered together off the bench. I think every minute Hardy plays, I think Green should play with him because I think they complement each other so nicely in terms of playmaking, defense, shot creation, and then like Green is a glue guy, Hardy's an ISO scorer, and I just feel like those pairing that like they can make magic happen. Where I think Josh Green could obviously start. Also, I think he could play next to Luka or Kyrie. But I just think he complements all of the weaknesses that Hardy has very nicely. And so if he's going to be relegated to a bench role, if Tim's going to start, which I think we all
think so, yeah.
Then I don't see like Hardy. I mean, Green will get the lion's share of the bench guard minutes. But if Hardy comes off the bench to play, I think he should be with Green because I think they fit like a puzzle piece. Like I think they fit perfectly together. I do. I think I was listening to you and Josh talk the other day, and you asked what would be the closing lineup.
Yeah, that was what somebody asked, and I was like, I'm not even giving it a thought.
Yeah, and you're like I hadn't thought about it, and Josh gave an answer. He said Kyrie, Luka, Green, Williams, Maxey, and I totally agree. I think Green. I know he can't guard power forwards. He can't guard up, but he can certainly guard down. So I think he can fill a small forward position a lot better than guarding up like Reggie Bullock could. I don't know. I think Green is kind of like the skeleton key. He's kind of like the bridge that can bridge the starting unit to the bench unit. And whether that's with Hardy or whether that's with Luka and Kyrie, I think he's the glue guy that can make both units function.
See, with Green, I want to see him play with Luka or Kyrie because I think if he's playing with both, you don't get any of one of the things that makes Josh so dynamic is his ability to friggin' take guys off the dribble, his willingness to do weird stuff while dribbling. If Luka and Kyrie are on the floor, most of them guys are going to they're just going to be handling the ball the most of it. But
that's fine.
I'm interested in that in both of them playing. I think is what it comes down to. And if you're sort of staring at a log jam of minutes, that becomes frustrating. And that's where, for me, I'm honestly less interested in Capella and I am freeing up, like moving on from Tim, if that's what the team wants. Yeah. It was something. It's interesting because I really think they thought they could move Tim. I still think they can, but it strikes me as something that doesn't happen until the trade deadline or something like that. And then at that point, it mucks up sort of one of the things they've been building. Cause I mean, and you could, until they signed Grant Williams prior to that, I think you could make the argument that like their best 4 players were all guards.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
The lineup stuff's going to be fascinating. So I really think Omax is going to shove his way into regular starting. I really, really do. I don't know whether that's at power forward or at small forward because Kid likes to play big. Yeah. And they're just oddly sized.
Yeah. And he's the only guy on the team that's built like a true power forward. I guess Maxey is, but he's the only guy that I think slots perfectly into a power forward position. So I think if it's Grant Williams is the only thing in front of Omax's way to getting, significant starters minutes, then I think you'll find himself there by January or February because I think Omax's ceiling is much higher than Grant. It's just that shot. If it's going to be real, if he's going to be able to knock down the open 3 that Luka is going to create, because I know Grant Williams can do it. We saw him do it in the Eastern Conference Finals. So until Omax can prove that he's not a liability on offense, I think defense is going to carry his, it's going to be his flag to plant in the ground. So
I think that's right. Guys, if you could take a minute and go ahead and like the stream if you haven't, that sort of thing is pretty helpful to just the entire process here. And if you haven't subscribed to our show, I'm pretty sure everybody that's listening is a subscriber because why else would you be doing this in the middle of August? Go ahead and hit that subscription button, and then it also lets you know when we go live.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. One of the things I love about Indeed is it makes hiring all in one place so easy and streamlined so I can spend more time on the rest of my business. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Josh, you thinking anything else?
I got one last. The reason I came up here, one last thing. Did you see the report that Dirk and Dwayne Wade are best friends now?
I just can't handle it. Are you familiar with a 1980 science fiction movie called Enemy Mine?
No, never heard of it.
It's this movie about this human and an alien that were at war and they get stranded on a planet together and they have to figure out how to work together. It's a classic movie, but it's like I can't handle it. Like, Dirk, send me that article, by the way, because I saw people talking about this, but I can't actually find it. I am floored. It is okay that everyone doesn't get along. Nobody fucking likes KG. That's like one of those things that's like secret. Like, no, only KG's like the guys that played with him love him, but like Duncan, Dirk, all the rest of them found KG super annoying. That's fine. Who cares? Like we're all, like we're all like, competition breeds real disdain. You know, that's fine. Yeah, like it's something they had.
I only say that because the ceremony's coming up in a week. I think August 12th. So.
Yeah, next week. So it's like that's gonna be like I really am trying hard not to talk about Dirk because next week is like Dirk week.
Yeah, it's gonna be Dirk and Dwayne Wade week. Don't forget that. Yeah,
that's right. Well, I mean, the whole class is incredible. Like, I rarely watch all of the Hall of Fame stuff just because some of the classes are divided. The class is bananas.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, Tony Parker, it's going to be great seeing all those guys. But I just, that was funny that Dirk was, leading with class again, and maybe we should take a page out of his book. I don't know. Or we don't have to. We don't have to.
I will not lead with class.
All right.
Thanks so much, Josh. You're the best.
Have a good weekend, man.
All right. You too. All right. Now we have Andreas, our regular overseas correspondent. What's going on, my guy?
Good evening. I'm very happy that you bring me up and that you do this.
I got out of practice, and you guys heard me saying this at the start of summer. When I do something on regular rotation, it becomes part of my routine. Then I fall out of my routine, and I'm like, I don't want to do it. And it's like so hot, and I'm just like, I don't know. But I'm glad you joined me. What's going on?
Thank you. I have to say I'm very happy with the off-season so far.
Okay.
My worst fear that we somehow land a Rudy Gobert and trade everything but Luka didn't materialize. So what usually happens in the off season, I think that's we can agree on that, and that we got some very interesting pieces. I'm very high on pretty much anyone we got. That includes all our centers, I must say, based on where we started off. Would we have gotten the best center there is? Probably not. I'm very happy that we didn't get somebody who like Miles Turner, like this sort of guy. I mean, he's supposedly a wonderful guy. I don't want to take anything away from that.
But as a player, does he fit? As a player, does he make the Mavs better? And I just don't have a firm answer for that. I liked what Josh was saying before, and I think a fair amount of our commenters really do want a different center because they want the floor to be raised. And I support that rationale. But I'm thinking about like playoffs, and I know it's a little cart before the horse since the Mavericks just missed the playoffs, and you got to get there first. But
Yeah.
some of these guys can't play very much in the playoffs. It's like you just watch centers slowly get worked out of the whole process.
Exactly, and then we got a guy like Grant, who I believe his nickname is Batman because he's defending Jokic so well, and who's really shining in the playoffs. And I think Kyrie has that thrill and the drive still, and maybe a little bit rejuvenated. So we have guys, Omax, I'm very high on him as well, who might slot in, so bigger guys at the center spot in playoff minutes anyway. Having had so many great examples like Golden State, for instance, obviously that's quite a comparison. But anyway, there's some question marks I still have. The first thing which continues to come to mind is who's going to be the on-ball defender, in particular some speedy guys, some speedy point guards. I can't see right now, maybe I'm wrong really, a Grant chasing behind those speedy guards. We have obviously Josh. Can he be considered the on-ball defender? I think he has to soak up some minutes there. Then Dante, you never know. Maybe Jaden develops a little bit in that regard, but who do we really have? I think this is where Thibault would have slotted in beautifully. What do you think? What's your take on this?
I think we dodged a bullet with Thibault, but in the long term, but I do understand like the vision for what the Mavericks were going for there. I mean, I Jason Kidd, and I still think of this piece at least like once a week where over at Dallas Magazine, Iztok Franco wrote about how small the Mavericks are. They didn't really get a lot bigger, but they do. There are some areas where they, because Omax is a huge person. I can't really explain. Like, having seen him in person, he's an older guy, which is fine. He's a senior. I think maybe he's a junior, but he's a little more developed physically than some of the like 19-year-old rookies that come in. And so he's a big guy. Grant Williams is a different kind of big guy because he's only 6'6", but he's a almost wide for lack of a better term. And that's why I think he's able to guard certain kinds of bigs really well, because he's strong and can get under center of gravity. I'm just curious if we're gonna play him more at like power forward. Like, obviously I think you can go with him at center at times, but there's some teams that'll just crush you on that. But that's sort of the gamble I think that the Mavericks have made if they don't go get someone like Capella, where you're gonna get roughshod by somebody like Denver.
Exactly.
But you might have gotten the crap kicked out of you by Denver and Jokic anyways, because Jokic is incredible.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you for that thought. I guess we will find out when the season starts, and I for one can't wait. Really, I'm very excited about this season, I must admit.
The preseason stuff should be getting released over the next couple of weeks. Like, we should have, and I'm going to pay very close attention to that, because my other bit, like the thing I'm just going to be thinking about, is I just need the Mavericks to not play 500 basketball for the first 20 games. I need them to get out and play good, definitive basketball and win with some authority and generate some buzz. Yeah.
No tinkering in the first games again. How many seasons in a row did we have this? I lost count. I lost track. In my opinion, this is what preseason is for exactly. And hopefully not this weird lineups we've seen in the past with 4 stretch minutes.
I mean, there were games that started last year where it's like Kidd just kept going back to JaVale despite it not working, and it's like, can we just stop? Oh well.
And for how many minutes? I think like 15 minutes easily.
Yeah, in the 15 minutes that they lost the game.
Yeah. So I'm very curious if Javal. Do you pronounce his name? I would say it's JaVale.
JaVale. Yeah, I don't think he starts. I think they cut him before the season starts if they can't move it.
Yeah.
I don't think. I'm guessing. This is speculation.
Yeah.
I don't know if Luka was very thrilled with him at points last year. There was way too many in-game situations where Luka would be like glaring at the guy. It was something else.
So yeah, otherwise we would have way too many centers anyway. I still consider Maxi as a power forward. I know he's gotten a little older and naturally you shift a little bit to the bigger positions, particularly if you're big, but I still consider him a power forward, particularly if he plays with Dwight. Then we need his defense anyway.
Yep.
It's a nice combi anyway, those two always have been.
Yep.
Then a third ball handler. Obviously we know Luka, Kyrie, off the charts, but who else do we have? We have Zeth, who could maybe slot in a little bit. He did that on his last stints, but now he gotten older, and I'm not entirely sure if he gotten better at that point in his game. Then Dante again. I think we can scratch Jaden after the performance as a ball handler. He has other strengths, I think.
Sure.
I guess we'll find out. And then we have Josh, who's always a wild card in that regard. What do you think? Who will the third ball handler be?
I think they'll give Josh plenty of time, plenty of chances.
Yeah,
I'm very describing him as a wild card is probably the most accurate description, because when things are going well, everybody that watches the team is like, "Oh, this guy." Because there's someone in the comments earlier that said, "I think he might make $15 million a year because he's due for a new contract." And then there are games where you watch him and he looks like he has never seen a basketball in his life.
Yeah,
and it's just like there's very rarely like, oh, that was a good Josh game. That was a terrible Josh game, or that was an unbelievable Josh game. Like there's just, not a lot. Like despite his averages, you go look at his box scores and it's weird.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes he had like those 4-point games and played 20 minutes still, and that was a mystery to me still. That is particularly interesting to me, considering the on-ball defender situation. He can't be both the on-ball defender and the third ball handler at the same time, in my opinion. So that would be a little bit.
I don't mind it, because I mean,
No?
if you assume, so this is actually
maybe
I can kind of see where you're going, because I've been of the opinion for most of the summer that if the Mavericks are hopefully make the roster and the offense a little more egalitarian, include in terms of moving the ball early, then you got to have more people handling the rock. Yeah. I mean, I can see your concerns,
and I think that's an undervalued point as well. I think all the guys we got in don't only want to share the ball, but they also can share the ball in comparison to the roster beforehand. And I think the point you also made earlier about the length. The length is only one part of athleticism. We've seen that all the time. I think Charles Barkley is the best example, obviously, for them. And obviously, it's quite a stretch to compare Grant to Charles, but they're both undersized to a degree if you want to slot him as a power forward or even as a center, particularly.
Yeah.
But they're crafty, they're dynamic, they have good vision, they are engaged, they want to get the ball, they dive after loose ball. This sort of situation, that's good. We didn't have this in a long time. And last thing, which popped into my mind is there are not a lot, but a few still very interesting free agents on the market. First and foremost, PJ Washington. And obviously with the situation, I just look at this right now here, we have not an awful lot, but a few guys in Charlotte. We have Kelly Oubre, I think is more of an offensive guy. But we have PJ Washington. They have a lot of those forward guys right now anyway. What do you think? Is there even a tiny chance that we can snatch him off? And would he be a good fit still, considering where we are with this roster? What's your thought on this?
Well, the Washington stuff is the most difficult to talk about to people that aren't extremely into the league, because he's obviously very good. So him not being signed is confusing until you really have to get into how contracts work. And I wouldn't be shocked, just because the situation in Charlotte is weird. I wouldn't be shocked if he's one of the first guys in a long time to sign that 1-year tender and then hit the market next year as a true free agent because he wants a significant amount of money. And I think he's good enough for it. Josh Bowe has been advocating that the Mavericks, by hook or by crook, try to find a way to get him. But they just, they just don't have enough. And that would be kind of an incredible cap on how things ended if they were able to come up with him. But I don't really see it. And then you had one more free agent that you said?
Oubre. Then Oubre, that's right. I think he's, in some regards, when you consider his play, I don't think his personality, but definitely his play, comparable to Timmy. Is that a fair comparison in terms of more offensive focus?
I think he's definitely more offensive focused. The reason he's not under contract is, from what I have understood, is that his vision of himself and what he's capable of doing and what the teams are seeing from him, very wide gap. and he's like he's an incredibly, this is a weird thing, but he's like an incredibly handsome man. Like his confidence is like off the charts. He said there was a story I saw last week about how he was too he says that he was too prideful to ask Michael Jordan for a specific pair of shoes. It's like, why? We're playing for Michael Jordan. Go ask. What are you doing? He's a bit of an odd duck. And I think that's why he hasn't been signed to date.
That's quite possible. I think that's the reason why a lot of guys still on the contract in the NBA anyway, because they have such likable personalities.
Sure. I mean, Christian Wood is still unsigned. Like, and he's a good functional player. There's just an element of this to where if you're really truly one-sided as a player, like if you can't play defense, then teams have a much harder time signing. Like you have to bring multiple things to the table if you're not guarding.
And I remember, was it you or was it Josh saying that you can imagine that he comes back to the Mavs on the minimum contract, 1 year, something in the end of a season now?
Probably me. Nothing would surprise me with Wood, but I just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we will see and find out. Very interesting few days ahead, I think. Still got
just a couple more weeks of us, being kind of bored. Yeah, but there have been, there's enough stuff on the calendar, like the Dirk thing next week for any German fan and any Maverick fan. I think is pretty important. I think then the World Cup stuff, the World Cup games are going to be great. They're Philippines are just such a basketball enthusiastic country. I just think it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to watching a number of different teams play. The United States team is probably their least. It doesn't have like marquee, like guys in bright lights, but I think it's a team that's capable of playing really well together. So that sort of stuff is fun for me. I'm looking forward to that.
And I can see that. And is Kerr who's the head coach as well?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously has a pedigree to bring people together.
That's right. That's a good point.
Get things out of guys other coaches might not have been able to, obviously. So very interesting point. I'm very curious. Those are my takes for today. Thank you very much for bringing me up. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, Andreas. All right. See you next time. Okay. So here's kind of what the deal will be for Mavs Moneyball. I think next week we will attempt to do some more Dirk-centric content. I've not even been pushing aggregation over at Mavs Moneyball. Here, Josh and I will still talk. I'm pretty sure at least on Tuesday. I won't be able to record this one next week because I have to go drive to Kansas City to see my folks. But we'll have stuff up and we'll be out and about. So, be sure to check your feeds. If you haven't, go ahead and leave us a review. Please leave comments on the post. I enjoyed seeing this. I got one last question, which I saw earlier from Christopher Gardner saying, have you talked about how Tim Bontemps said that he thinks it's a toss-up in the between Shai and Luka? The context of that was the best team the best player in the World Cup this year. I mean, Shai was the other first-team guard. I love Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was 4th in MVP voting. Luka was 8th. I think Luka is a better overall player, but Shai might be like one of my 5 favorite guys in the league to watch. So like, it's really hard for me to be like, I don't think he's that good, because I do. I think he's awesome. I just think Luka, I've said this and I'll keep repeating this. Like, Luka could be Thanos snapped right now, and I think he would be a basketball Hall of Famer. Can't say that about Shai. So, all right, team. Thanks so much for hanging out. This has been Kirk Henderson of Pod Maverick, and this has been Group Therapy Live. Everybody, please leave us a review, comment, all that wonderful stuff. You could send us an email if you are at all interested at podmaverickpodcast@gmail.com, and I will do my best to answer your question. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on a Friday, and everyone go enjoy your weekend and try to not get sunburned if you're here in Texas. Bye, guys.